Hello, my name is Michael Lambert. Now, today I wanted to talk about health service charging. I was going to talk about what Sajid Javid had to say in the Times last week about how, in due course, we're probably going to have to pay for visits to the doctor and for going to A&E and so on. And I was going to argue that that probably was going to be inevitable and so on, and that the one thing we should really worry about above everything else is privatisation of the health service, which I think we should resist at all costs. And I have no doubt the government are seriously considering. Now, as I say, I was going to talk about that, but then I noticed yesterday that this morning Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor, was going to be making a speech in which he was going to outline the government's plans for the future, because there's been a lot of criticism about, there's a bit of a drift at the moment. We can all see that the economy is doing extremely badly. We all know that, and there's just a constant tsunami of bad news, really. I mean, even last week there was or yesterday, wasn't it, the news that car production was the worst for 66 years. I mean, our car industry is practically shot anyway, isn't it? And then there's that car battery factory that went and bust a couple of weeks ago, and you just have to look around. You can see the pubs are empty, the restaurants are empty, you can see the shops are all boarded up. Just everybody knows that the things are really hard, and everyone's finding everything very expensive and so on. Nothing of this, of course, has anything to do whatsoever with Brexit, but nonetheless, we're all struggling. We all wanted a plan, and so Jeremy Hunt this morning went to Bloomberg to give a speech telling us all about what the government's plans were for making everything nice and sunny. Before he spoke, Michelle Donnellan, the business secretary, gave a speech. Now, I didn't hear her speech or read it, but I've no doubt she was telling us what a good thing Brexit is and what advantages there are now that we've left the evil empire. She was a very, very strong Remainer herself, and she campaigned to remain in the EU, like most of the cabinet. Jeremy Hunt was one of the biggest, the strongest Remainers. He was really, really pro-Remain and dead against leaving. But again, during his speech, he was telling us what a wonderful opportunity Brexit has brought us all, and how well we're all going to do. Now, this speech was designed, as I say, to show us that the government has a plan, to let us know what's going to happen, and so we can all relax and just wait until we're all, we're going to be high wage, high skilled, and so on, and all live lives of luxury. And he peppered his speech with all sorts of things, like he kept talking about Silicon Valley. This is what Grant Shapps was telling people in Davos last week. He said, Jeremy Hunt, he said, we're going to become a World Class Technology Superpower. Yep, I'm going to become a World Class concert pianist when I learn how to play the piano. He said things like, if we're to become Europe's most successful economy. Didn't tell us exactly how or what possible reason he could have for saying that, but he kept saying also that he's incredibly proud of what we've achieved so far. His speech was peppered with all sorts of odd statistics that showed how we are just world leading in whatever it happened to be he was mentioning. The whole thing was completely and utterly deluded, and I don't think anyone but a complete and utter idiot would have taken one sentence of it seriously. It was just aspirational drivel. Funny thing was that at the end of his speech, so there were questions, and two journalists both asked him, rather interestingly, they said to him, have you ever received a penalty from the taxman? His response was, I'm not going to answer questions about my personal tax affairs. And then he was asked it again and said, I'm not going to answer questions about personal tax affairs. He said, I don't think the public are interested in my tax affairs. And I thought, no, I think we're very interested in everybody's tax affairs in government. But anyway, I put a piece on Twitter just referring to this, and immediately somebody sent me an article, which I will read you the first paragraph of. It's an article from The Guardian, which started as follows. A company co-founded by Jeremy Hunt, This was 2018, this one. A company co-founded by Jeremy Hunt breached company law before carrying out a restructuring designed to reduce the Health Secretary's tax bill by about £100,000. It has emerged. And I thought, is there anybody in this government that's not tainted? I mean, it's just quite extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, I don't know, that story may disappear altogether, but I would have thought people would want to know a bit more about it. And when he was asked it, I mean, the obvious answer was, no, I haven't. But of course, now it would appear that quite possibly he was fined or made to pay a penalty. And I was thinking again about, in terms of how it's just one scandal after another. When you look at how things are at the moment, you look at Zahawi hanging on for his on his fingernails, isn't he? By his fingernails, and you see Dominic Raab with his sat in next to Sunak every week in Question Time. You know that 24 people have now accused him of bullying, and you look at Braverman having been reappointed as Home Secretary a week after being sacked and so on, and you look at all the chaos on the backbenches and how Sunak daren't do a thing and daren't sack anybody. He doesn't seem to dare to move, and you just think how long this can go on for. I'm sure a lot of those backbenchers must be wishing it's all going to come to an end, because there's no future. They know they're not going to recover. Many of them must be wishing they weren't there. And when you see how many of them have said that they're not going to stand again, and when you see how some of them are getting other jobs now, you see the ridiculous Rees-Mogg is now going to be on talk radio, isn't he? And Nadine Dorries is going to presenting a television program on Talk TV or something. And you think this can't really go on much longer. It can't last for another 2 years. I mean, God knows what state we're going to be in by then, unless, of course, we become a world-class technology superpower by then. But anyway, the other thing I wanted to talk a little bit about was about immigration, because behind Jeremy Hunt when he was giving the speech were Sunak's 5 pledges, things that we all want above everything else. And number 5, sure enough, it's stop the boats coming. And, I've talked about them before. The boats are coming because there is no legal route, and it is as simple as that. And no matter how much the Home Secretary may dream and obsess about wanting to send them all off to Rwanda, they're not doing anything to solve that problem. And again, as I said before, I think a lot of these people who are coming, or in the past who've been coming, have been people who are pretty resourceful and pretty determined and pretty keen to get on. I don't think they're people coming here to, as is the popular perception, they're coming here just to scrounge off the taxpayer. I'm quite sure that is not the case. I think there are questions about whether or not Albanians should be coming here because they're not really escaping any great danger in the way that Afghans or Iranians or Eritreans are, and so on. But anyway, I did do a little bit of research into this question of really population, and there's a very good website I'd recommend to you. It's called populationpyramid.net. I'll leave a link down below. But what this website does, it shows a population pyramid for every country in the world and all regions and so on. Now, if you don't know what a population pyramid is, it's a diagram. The way they make these diagrams, they divide a population into 4-year bands, so there are 25 bands up to 100, so 0 to 4, 5 to 9, and so on, right the way up. And for each band, they count how many people there are, and they draw a bar or a line across, and the length of the line is determined by how many people are at that age. And so you build up, and you get a shape, which is broadly a pyramid. It's more like a tree in some cases. And if you look at most of the poorer countries in the world, they've all got very high birth rates, and so their pyramids tend to be like broad pyramids. They tend to be not as tall as more advanced countries. So you get this sort of pyramid of that shape with a very big down the bottom, a lot of people being a big birth rate, and people dying earlier, and more people dying as they get older because they haven't got such good health care and so on. But when you look in, and incidentally, bearing in mind that all of these poor countries, almost every country in Africa and a lot of countries in the Middle East and Far East have these shapes, these broad triangles. And you think of all those people down the bottom who are going to grow up. They're going to grow up, many, many, many of them, in countries which are going to become uninhabitable as a result of global warming. Those people, those masses, billions of people are going to start moving. And that's something else that we should be very, very concerned about. Now, on any of these population pyramids, if you look at the first 20 years, these are people who are in education largely, and so they're not contributing anything. In fact, they're costing money because they have to be educated, so we have to pay for the schools. People from 20 to about retirement age, which in our country is 65, or was it 60? Maybe until about 65. They're working, they're earning money, they're spending money, they're paying taxes. From 65 onwards, you get the old folk, and they're contributing nothing. They're drawing state pensions, and they're a cost to the economy. Now, they're getting more and more expensive because there are more of us. I'm one of them. There are more of us, and we're living longer. And old people always require, or don't always, but usually require more healthcare. And healthcare is getting more and more expensive. So the cost to the economy is increasing all the time. So ideally, you want plenty of people working to generate the taxes and the money to support both the children and the old folk. Now, if you look at population pyramids of countries in the West, the UK and most of Europe, America, they're slightly better. But if you look at them, they're more like, instead of being like a pyramid, they're more like a gherkin. So you get this straight sides with a big round bit at the top because people are living longer, and also because the population is not increasing at all, you're getting, in some cases, you're getting even narrowing at the base. I mean, like Japan, for example, it's quite narrow at the base, and therefore they're not producing anything like enough people. But what this means is, if you've got a gherkin-shaped pyramid, is that the people from 20 to 65 who are the earners, the taxpayers, are limited in number, and the only way you can find all this money that Jeremy Hunt and all the government are going to spend on education, they're spending money on everything, education, and the money they're going to spend on the health service to keep all these old people alive and so on, all this expensive new drugs and equipment and so on. The only way you get that is either increasing the taxes on the people in the middle, and frankly we're now at the moment paying the highest taxes we've paid for 70 years, or alternatively you've got to introduce some cuts. Now, you can't really cut anything when you've cut everything to the bone. So what are you left with? Well, the only other option in order to grow that middle bit is immigration. You increase the employed population. And this, of course, is what many countries realise. I mean, America, for example, realised that, and many countries realise that they're going to have to increase their populations, a working population, in order to pay for all the things they need to pay for. Now, unfortunately, we have in this country, thanks to Farage and thanks to the Conservatives and thanks to many right-wing parties, we have an absolute hatred of foreigners. We don't want foreigners coming here. Above all, we don't want Europeans coming here. We don't want German doctors and Italian nurses and Spanish waiters and waitresses and all these different people. We don't want them coming here from Europe. We realise that we might have to bring some in from Africa and from the Far East and Middle East and so on, but we just don't want Europeans here. But generally speaking, we don't want any new people coming into this country because we're already full. You know, for example, we've built on 2% of the land already, so there's no room for these people to live, and they cost money. I mean, they need to use schools, and they need to use maybe use a health service sometime. And they pay taxes to pay far more taxes than they actually cost. But nonetheless, we don't want them here. And so I think with this little Britain attitude that we've got now, it's so obvious to see when you start looking at these population pyramids. It's so easy to see how it just isn't going to work. It just isn't going to work. We are going to get poorer and poorer and poorer. And in addition to restricting our workforce, and we already know this is something that Jeremy Hunt mentioned as well this morning, that 5.2 people who could be working are not working, who chose not to work. So although they're still paying taxes, they're not actually, so they're still spending money, they're not actually paying any PAYE, they're not contributing PAYE and national insurance because they've just stopped working. And this is the madness of it all. This is the absolute madness of saying, as we have as an advanced country, part of a huge organisation, we're going to go on our own, global Britain. World Class Technology Superpower. It's just so divorced from reality. It's absolutely la-la land nonsense. And as I was about to say, the economy is already doing very badly because of it's so difficult to export and because we've lost the EU as a market. And people are not going to come and invest here. Why would you invest in a country that is separated from the biggest, richest, most advanced market in the world by bureaucratic barriers, which even Keir Starmer is not going to be able to get rid of? And this, I think, illustrates a bit the utter madness of what we're doing. And yet, arch Brexiteer Jeremy Hunt and Michelle Donald and all the rest of them in the cabinet, who all thought Remain was the best option, are all pushing ahead. We've got to make it work. We're going to make a success of seizing all the opportunities of being free, breaking the shackles and being free from the evil empire of the EU, which has dragged us down all these years. Just think how bad things would have been if we'd stayed in the EU. You can't imagine it, can you? It's just nuts, it's just so exasperating that it's so stupid, and it's all being driven, as I say, by these right-wing extremists and a lot of people who haven't got a clue, get all their information from the Daily Express and the Daily Mail and other newspapers that have proprietors who live in other countries who really couldn't give a fig. So anyway, that's what I think about it, and if you watched this far, thank you very much indeed. And if you haven't already subscribed, and if you approve of what I have to say, I'd really be grateful if you would subscribe. Or if you know of anybody else you think might be interested, I would appreciate it. I would like to make more videos if possible this year. And so, once again, thank you for watching, and until next time, bye for now.